Hey guys, it's Jack. I wanted to let you know that we're starting a new push for subscriptions here on Human Events Daily. So make sure that when you're listening to this podcast, you hit subscribe, you download it, and you share it with 5 of your friends. Make sure they're all going and downloading as well, because we need to get the signal out as much as possible. Look, we've done so much over the past couple of years since this show started, and we're only going to do so much more. Let's get it. This is what happens when the fourth turning meets fifth generation warfare.
A commentator, international social media sensation, and former Navy intelligence veteran.
This is Human Events with your host, Jack Posobiec.
Christ is king.
The Houthis claiming attacks on 2 Saudi oil tankers as the Iran-backed group's blockade threatens shipping in the Red Sea, forcing other oil tankers to change course.
I hope that they'll stop. They shouldn't really do that. They got suckered into this by the Iranians. You know, the Houthis largely were smart and stayed out of all this throughout the conflict, but they now apparently have gotten themselves suckered into this, going after Saudi Arabia and their ships. I hope that will de-escalate, because I think the Houthis, frankly, got snookered into this thing by the Iranians.
Right. Sources told CBS News this was coming, a landmark agreement between the U.S. and Saudi Arabia to allow Saudi Arabia to develop a civilian nuclear program on its soil. And just a short time ago, in the past hour, the administration confirmed it with an official announcement saying that there's also an agreement to have bilateral safeguards in place, and that these agreements, quote, advance U.S. and regional security by upholding high standards of nuclear safety, security, and non-proliferation, and strengthening the U.S.'s competitive edge in civil nuclear technology.
This was obviously a consequential week for House Republicans, but it was a very consequential week for the American people. And we've delivered once again. Americans demand a few things that are common sense. They demand secure elections. They want a strong national defense capable of countering our adversaries. They want a Congress that plays by the same rules that they do. These are not big things to ask. House Republicans delivered on all those promises and those priorities this week, and then some.
In the firebombing case outside Federal Plaza in Lower Manhattan, News 4 has obtained new video showing the suspect setting off fireworks and firing a pellet rifle at pedestrians before setting off that fireball.
In West Virginia, massive flooding is a concern all across the state. This is video from the town of Horner, where you see that backyard swing set in the middle of a raging river.
East Carolina University's Brody School of Medicine is one of 5 medical schools being investigated by the Trump administration. According to the Education Department, its Office for Civil Rights is looking into the medical school for alleged racial discrimination in admissions. The office will decide if the schools violated Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibits discrimination based on race, color, or national origin.
Testimony continues in day 3 of the trial of Shiloh Hendricks, the woman seen in a viral video calling a black child a racial slur last year.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard today's edition of Human Events Daily. Today is July 23rd, 2026. Anno Domini. We're here live on Real America's Voice. Well, folks, the trial is underway in Rochester, Minnesota, for Shiloh Hendricks. Now, folks might remember Shiloh Hendricks from last year after a viral altercation that she made with a Somali family broke out all over TikTok, and she was being pilloried. She was being just totally dragged online, and they went and pressed charges on her. And in fact, the family of the Somali family is now working with the NAACP to bring these charges. And we dug in a little bit into this case to learn more about what was going on. We're going to have Libby Evans on here in a minute. But this really is an interesting test case, because it seems very much as though Shiloh Hendricks is on trial for speech, for a speech crime, for a thought crime. Not because she threatened someone, not because she was assaulting someone. No. When you look into the story, it's very simple when you actually get all the facts. And that's the viral video. And freedom of speech doesn't just mean speech that you like, speech that you agree with. Sometimes it means stuff that you disagree with. Sometimes it means speech that you consider rude, speech that you wouldn't actually use yourself. I personally do not. I don't teach my kids to speak like that. But is it really worth a crime? Is it really worth a criminal trial and a criminal conviction? That seems to be what's going on here. Like, do we really want to put someone facing all of this to, a mom who was defending her son, where someone had another kid stole her son's lunch away. She was chasing him down. No parents in sight, had no idea what was going on. And we live in a country where people are getting fed up. People are absolutely getting fed up with all of this, with so many people, particularly the Somali population in Minnesota, breaking all the rules. And we just found out about all the fraud that is going on in Minnesota. So if you're someone who is simply a native of Minnesota, trying to take your kid to the park, and suddenly you're going viral on TikTok, and suddenly they're stealing your kid's lunch, and you're sick of one group of people getting a special pass, one group of people, having the fast lane open to them that's not available to you, and you're just a mom who's out there. Look, I'm not saying I agree with everything that she did or anything like that, but what are we doing here? A criminal trial for someone's speech? I can't stand for that. I just can't stand for that. And it's a situation where I think this has gone too far. To put someone on trial, a mother on trial for speech is wrong. And I would say it was wrong to put someone on trial for speech, regardless of who it was. Jack Posobiec, right back, Human Events Daily.
In our way, and our golden age has just begun.
This is Human Events with Jack Posobiec.
Now it's time for everyone to understand what America First truly means.
Welcome to the Second American Revolution.
All right, folks, Jack Posobiec back live here, Human Events Daily, Real America's voice. Folks, America just turned 250, and we are not celebrating weakness. We are celebrating freedom. We're celebrating strength in the greatest country in the world. Here's the crazy part, though. 250 years later, we're still here, drinking whatever the government decided to put in our water, fluoride for your teeth, chlorine to keep things clean. Well, that's not a decision I want someone else making for my family. That's why I use Cove Pure to purify my water. Over 209 million Americans are on fluoridated water right now. And here's what the science actually shows. A recent study confirmed that fluoride exposure is linked to lower IQ scores in children. I'm not talking about fringe studies. That's JAMA Pediatrics, one of the most respected medical journals in the world. And chlorine, that isn't even the worst part. It's what happens when it reacts with natural particles in the water from plants and soil. It creates chemical byproducts called THMs, which the government itself calls probable human carcinogens, linked to disruption of your gut and cancer. Sure, states are moving on this. Utah and Florida banned fluoride, but that process takes years. Your kids, your family, they're drinking this water today. You need something that works now, and that's what the Poso family uses. We use Cove Pure. Cove Pure is certified to remove up to 99.9% of contaminants. Fluoride, THMs, pharmaceuticals, PFAs, anything that isn't water gets filtered out. And I love how easy Cove Pure is to use, how great the water tastes. My kids, they call it super water. I'm actually serious. They do call it super water. They always fill it up right before they go play sports or something. They're like, give me the super water, Daddy. I say, well, of course, super water for you. And actually, at this point, they don't even ask for it anymore because they've kind of figured out how to get it out themselves. So they just go, and they don't go for soda. They don't go for juices. What they go for is the super water out of Cove Pure. And it gives you that peace of mind that you know that you're in control of what your family drinks. So don't wait for the government to catch up. Take back control of your water. And in honor of America's 250th, Cove Pure is giving the Human Events Daily audience $250 off if you use our link, COVEPURE.com/Poso. Don't wait. That's COVEPURE.com/Poso. And folks, I want to read something to you because we've just come from CPAC UK. Did you know that over 12,000 people are arrested annually in the United Kingdom under laws criminalizing speech and communications offensives, such as sending grossly offensive or menacing messages? That means, with the data that you can track back, this is data from the Times of London, 30 to 33 people a day. So 33 people a day are arrested in the United Kingdom over speech. I just met one of them at CPAC UK. This was Lucy Connolly. She was arrested for posting about migrants. She was sentenced to 3 years in jail. This is a mom. A young mother was sentenced to jail for posting about migrants. And by the way, this was in the wake of the Southampton murders, where a migrant had just gone in, had run into a little girl's dance recital or dance studio where they were singing or listening to Taylor Swift songs, and started stabbing little girls and killed 3 of them. That's UK. 33 people a day, 12,000 per year. So when I see something like Shiloh Hendricks, and I get it, people are going to say, oh my gosh, Jack, what are you doing? Are you defending use of the N-word? Are you doing all this stuff? How dare you? You can't do that. I said, no, listen to what I'm talking about. I don't want the United States to become the UK, where we start locking people up for the basis of speech. We're going to bring on Libby Emmons now, because Libby, you've been checking this story out, and you, of course, are a huge warrior for freedom of speech.
Yes, and this is something that I'm very concerned about. This isn't the only case either. As you mentioned, this is going on in Europe and in the UK, and it's even coming to Canada. A recent legal watchdog report came out saying that Canadians were being contacted at their homes over things that they'd said on social media following the passage of a hate speech law. And these were things they said far before the law even went into effect. So this is something of concern. In the United States, of course, we do not have hate speech laws. The very notion is anathema to our First Amendment rights, and we would absolutely not tolerate such a thing. I certainly hope. Of course, the socialists are gaining control, and what they can't control physically, they want to control mentally, and that's something they're probably going to start working on. But yes, this Shiloh Hendricks case, really fascinating. She went to trial this week. She's charged with counts of disorderly conduct. These are misdemeanors, but she would face up to 90 days in jail, as well as a hefty $1,000 fine. And she's being prosecuted because of what happened on a playground. She's sort of the canary in the playground of the Minnesota Somali fraud situation. And there are so many different elements to this case.
No, and this is why I want to dig into this. I want to look at the nuts and bolts of it. We have to look at the actual case as well, look at the actual details, but at the same time, we have to be cognizant of the context. And the context is, this is the United States of America, and we have freedom of speech. And that doesn't mean speech you like, and that doesn't mean speech you agree with, and speech that's pretty all the time and friendly and flowery and super cordial. This isn't like afternoon tea speech. Okay, it means freedom of speech. It means we don't put people, because here's the problem, right? And Libby, this is what I said, and I tweeted this out, and I said, well, this is an example of the anti-white system at work, because of course it's a white person who gets put on trial for speech in this case. That I could think of hundreds, thousands of times where people have gotten into a fight at the park, or people have hurled insults at each other in public, but you don't go to jail for it. But you notice The first one they put on trial is a white mother.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what's going on. And if we look back at the circumstances of this case, it starts out with something that every mom can relate to. This woman went to a park near her home in Rochester. She put her bag down, her diaper bag down. She's chasing her 18-month-old son around the park. Another kid, 8 years old at the time, his dad says that he's autistic, to the point where there was a GPS monitor on him, courtesy of the Rochester Police Department, because of how often...
I'm sorry, wait a minute. Sorry, wait. The police put a monitor on a child?
Yes. The father testified that there was a monitor on his son, courtesy of the Rochester Police Department. He was there with 3 kids. The 8-year-old, I believe, was the middle child.
Okay, so the father testifies that he has this child he knows there's issues, and that there's a tracker on the child. Okay, I'm just going to go with that. And yet for some reason he wasn't completely on top of this boy the entire time if he knew that he had issues like this.
Yes, and also the father, who is Somalian, was speaking through a translator, and through that translator told the court that his 8-year-old autistic son with an ankle monitor does not know how to follow rules. So this boy went into the diaper bag, Shiloh Hendricks's diaper bag, pulled out a snack apparently and stuffed it in his mouth. His dad testified again through the translator that his child is very curious and likes to take things and test them out with his mouth. So that apparently is what the child had done. Miss Hendricks was angry, went over to the child, hurled these slurs at the child, and then was filmed by a third party, another Somalian man who was at the park, who then taunted her and urged her to keep saying it for the camera. And she did keep saying it. He posted it on the TikTok. And it wasn't until that video went viral and 10 days after the initial playground incident that the father of the 8-year-old contacted first the NAACP in Minnesota, and the NAACP told him to contact the police, which he then did. The NAACP then launched a fundraiser for this father.
There's a lot to unpack there. And
there really is.
you know, one of the things that I definitely want to ask is, so you just said that the father was testifying through a translator. So do we even know if this Somali family speaks English at all?
No, we don't have any understanding if they speak English or not, which kind of leads to the question of how they understood what she was saying in the first place.
Right. And perhaps they didn't. And that's why, as you say, they didn't contact anyone until the NAACP got involved. And that being said, though, you know, the father in all of this, the father seems like the key to all of this to me. That as a dad, I know, and I've taken my kids to the park. We've all, as parents, taking your kids to the park. You know that you're responsible for your child's behavior. You are the one who's responsible to make sure that your child is not, like overtly picking on other kids or messing with their little brothers, or certainly, by the way, not stealing from other children. That, to me, is incumbent on the father. And even more so if, as you say, the father knew that their son had all of these issues.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And when you take your kid to the park, as you know, as I know, as parents all across this country know, you often have to put your stuff down so that you can chase after your kid, and there's this unspoken rule, not just in the playground, but in the law where it is spoken, where you don't go digging around in other people's stuff and steal their things. This was the rule in Brooklyn playgrounds where I took my son when he was little. We'd put our stuff down on a bench or at a picnic table or even just in the corner of the park, and you go chase your kid around. That's what happened. So you should be able to trust the other people at the park to not go into your stuff themselves, and to certainly not let their kids go into your stuff. That is what we expect living in a high trust society, and that trust is being eroded. And what's interesting too about this.
Yeah, no, I'm coming up on a quick break here. I was going to say it's this old system we used to have called the honor system, that used to be enforced by parents, where, myself, and I'm sure you as well, Libby, that if you saw your kid rooting around in somebody else's bag, you'd probably smack him. I know I would. I'd go right behind the head. I'd be like, get out of there. Exactly. and then we go straight to push-ups, and we just go straight to push-ups in our household. So we go, I'd be like, just start pushing, boy. You get right down there and start pushing. If you ate something, then it's on. It's absolutely on. All right, Jack Posobiec right back. Real America's Voice, Human Events Daily. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have the President of the United States now at EPA headquarters.
From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston and New York
about this group, and they said, could you come over and run over and say a few things? And I said, absolutely, I will. And they gave me the lowest seat I've ever sat in. I think, they set that. They do that on purpose. I don't think it was Chris that did it. I'm just trying to compare them. Chris wouldn't do that, but it happens. It's really an honor to be with you, tremendous people, and it's a really important subject, so I wanted to be here. I'll say a few words, and then I'll head out, and you'll handle it, and it's something you're very familiar with. But the people in the room are real doers, real amazing. It's an amazing group. We're here today to continue the incredible progress we're making in communities nationwide to ensure that as new data centers go up, and they're going up all over, electricity bills for American families will actually come down. You're going to be building your own data centers, and you're going to building your own electric plants. You're essentially becoming a utility like Con Edison in New York, but maybe at a level that nobody's ever seen before, because we've seen some of the plants that they're building are absolutely incredible. They're absolutely incredible. They're electric plants, electric manufacturing plants. It's hard to believe, but you need double the electricity that we have right now, maybe even more than that, to really fulfill what you want to do. We're leading China by a lot, and using our old grid would not have worked. And I came up with the idea that, build your own plant. This way nobody can complain. You won't call me and say what a terrible job I'm doing, because we have a 200-year-old grid that's not the best in the world. You look at some places, you take a look at California, you have brownouts and blackouts every weekend. The last thing they're going to be able to do is supply electric at numbers. Nobody's ever explained to me why it's so much electricity, why you need so much, nor did I care that much, to be honest with you. All I know is you need more than double what we produce right now. Think of it. So we produce tremendous amounts of electricity for every business, and this industry needs more than double that amount. So we're letting you build your own with the Trump administration's Ratepayer Protection Plan. The American innovators and consumers thrive to win together because we're insisting that AI data centers and big tech companies pay their own way, and that's what they're doing, and they're happy to do it because this way they're going to be able to function and function brilliantly. They're going to have a lot of electricity left over, and they'll put that into the grid, so we'll actually end up with more electricity. The rates are going to go down. As president, I've always said that America's goal must be to dominate the future, and that includes being the #1 superpower in artificial intelligence, so important. And this is, I think, bigger than frankly, I think it's bigger than the internet. It's bigger than anything anyone's seen thus far. Maybe someday there'll be something bigger than this, probably will. But I think up until this point, AI is probably the biggest thing anybody's ever seen. And whoever wins that race is probably going to win, period. And again, we're leading China, and we want to keep it that way. President Xi is coming over on September 24th, and we talked about it when I was over in Beijing, and we'll be talking about it again. But he was very impressed with the job we've done, because ordinarily, they don't have any problem with electric. They build a lot of electric. They don't do environmental impact statements. They just say, you want electric, we'll build it. They don't use too many windmills. They make the windmills, but they don't use them. They do it the old-fashioned way in many ways. The United States never settles for second, and we don't under this administration. I can tell you that. You see that because we have the hottest country right now anywhere in the world. We live by the motto, America First. That's what's made us very strong, and we're leading China and all other countries by a lot in AI and just about every other category, including crypto. We want to stay in front in crypto. They'd love to take that over. So many other things they'd like to take over. They're highly competitive, if you haven't noticed. But thanks in part to this incredible technology boom, investments are pouring into the United States from all over the world. $19.2 trillion, creating hundreds of thousands of jobs. So think of it, $19.2 trillion in 12 months. Okay? And the previous administration had less than $1 trillion in 4 years. I would say that's an improvement. Do I get credit for it? No. But no credit. Think of that. It's a 19.2 in 12 months versus less than 1 in 4 years. It's hard to believe, right? But that's the way it is. No credit, but we just keep chugging along. But as I say, I get no credit for anything, and then I look around the Oval Office. I said, oh, but we're in the Oval Office. So I guess we do get credit. But less than 2 years ago, our country was dead. And I've had this said by so many leaders. They use the expression a little bit different sometimes, said differently, but meaning the same thing. They say, sir, less than 2 years ago, your country was dead, and now you have the hottest country anywhere in the world, and we are the hottest in the world. At the same time, we know that the data centers and AI are dramatically increasing the demand for electricity. It's only fair that the cost of building the new infrastructure required to meet this demand should be borne by the corporations themselves, not by the American consumers and the American patriots, American citizens. And I think everybody agrees to it. And actually, they really don't have a choice because there's no way of producing that kind of electricity, the kind you need, and they want to do it themselves. And honestly, they're coming up with some plans that are genius, just like they are. That's why earlier this year I introduced the Ratepayer Protection Pledge. Under this groundbreaking plan, America's largest tech companies have formally committed to fund or build all energy infrastructure required to meet the demand they are placing on the grid. So they're going to be funding all of those electric needs, and we're giving them the right to build their own power plants. Lee Zeldin is here. He's phenomenal, and he's getting it done quickly. And he is phenomenal. He's incredible. He's an MVP candidate, I will tell you. He is doing things at levels, and by the way, everything perfectly. He's totally into the environment, but he's getting things done in 2, 3, 4 weeks that used to take years and years. And people are getting their approvals, and they're building buildings. We're building more buildings now, plants, and all sorts of manufacturing capability that we've never done anywhere near it many, many times. And companies are pouring in. Toyota, the other day, as you know, announced that they're moving into our country from Mexico. They're going to be, I think, closing up a lot of their operation, maybe all of it in Mexico. They're moving to this country. We have we have more car plants being built now in the United States than at any time in history. And, you know, we went years before me. We went many years with no car plant being built. I mean, they wouldn't even think about building in this country. Now, we're the hot. Same thing with chips. We'll have about 50% by the time this term is over. We're going to have probably 50% of the chip market. A year ago, when we began, we had no chip market. We had virtually none other than Intel. We had Intel. And we made a purchase of 10% of Intel. We got it for the right price. And we made approximately $72 billion on that deal. So it was good. Do I get credit for that one? No. I get no credit. None. But we did that, and we made a lot of great deals, I'll tell you. And we keep it going, too. But Intel's been fantastic, one of the hottest companies anywhere in the country. And when we met them, they were really having very big difficulty. We worked with them. But the stock price has gone up many times. I think it's maybe the hottest or one of the hottest anywhere in the world. So that was an honor to do it. I love looking good. But we made a lot of money. We made, I guess, over $72 billion on that profit. They've also agreed to invest heavily in local communities where data centers are built, supporting job training and local services. They're really spending a tremendous amount of money. In other words, they're the governors in the room. You have great governors in this room. And these companies are spending tremendous amounts of money on the communities, the local communities. So I think it's important that we tell the local communities that, because other nations are trying to get us to slow down, and they're spending a lot of money on propaganda, on press, PR, trying to convince everybody that this isn't a positive thing. And if we don't do this, we're going to be left behind. And even communities compared to other communities. You have some communities that really want this. This isn't all negative stuff. You have communities that really want the data centers. And frankly, those are the smart communities, because it means tremendous numbers of jobs. very little actual disruption. And the ones that don't want it, you know, the happiest people in the world are foreign countries, number one, and number two, other communities within our country, because they're begging for them to be there. And some of them are great communities, very, very forward-looking communities, very smart communities. Since I introduced this plan just a few months ago, more than 220 utilities, tech companies, state governments, and other partners have signed our ratepayer protection pledge. Electricity rates for 80% of the power distributed in America are now being kept in check by the plan. We have kept rates down, way down. You know, we inherited the worst inflation in the history of America from the Biden administration. And as you know, last week it was announced that inflation is way down. It's down more than it's been in over 6 years. And other things are happening that are so fantastic. And when all these buildings, plants, factories that we're talking about start opening up, all I know is I'd like to be the next president, because I'm going to make somebody look very good. They're going to sit there and all this stuff is going to be opening and they're going to be saying what a genius they are. That happened with Biden. I got cuts in medicine prices that statutorily took 2 or 3 years. And I got these tremendous cuts, and then they sat there and said, oh, yeah. They didn't even know where they came from. But I got them, and this is going to be a much bigger example. You have all these plants that are going to be opening up over the next 2 years, sooner, but 2 years. And somebody's going to look very, very smart, and I hope you remember me, because what we've done is something that nobody thought was possible. For example, Southern companies, Georgia Power has frozen base rates for households until 2029. Is anybody here from Georgia Power? Huh? There's a certain governor who's here. A certain governor who's here. Congratulations. Good job. That's a great job. I've heard about it. Congratulations to both, and it's fantastic. And Georgia, the revenue from Google's data center construction is allowing them to eliminate property taxes entirely. And that's what you call using it to your advantage. The numbers are so incredible. Nobody's ever seen. You know, all my life, the biggest building in the whole world was the Pentagon. And you can fit 25 Pentagons into some of these buildings, 25. And if you happen to be a community, and there's very little disruption. They're just large. They go on for miles. And frankly, if you like certain types of things, they're incredible to look at, to see that we could do something like this. But they also throw off tremendous amounts of money for the community. And when you look at Georgia and you look at the revenue, think of that, revenue from Google's data center construction, allowing them to eliminate all property taxes. Did you know that, Brian? That's not bad, right? So thank you very much. Great job. That's a great job. And you probably had some negative stuff, a little heat. Oh, we don't want a data center. Usually those are the people that actually want them and that like you not to build them. Because you know what? If it doesn't go to you and if it doesn't go to Georgia, as an example, it's going to go someplace else. And those people are very happy to get them, too, the smart people. American Electric Power now projects that their customers will enjoy as much as $16 billion in cost offsets for consumers thanks to their data center contracts. $16 billion. So think of that. That's cost offsets. In Iowa, Alliant Energy data center deals. Where are you, Alliant? Alliant, where are you? Are you here? Thank you. Data center deals are allowing them to freeze electric rates for consumers for at least 5 years. So your rates are going to stay the same or lower. In Louisiana, there's a guy looks like he's from Louisiana to me. Public school teachers in so think of that, Richland Parish are getting as much as $50,000 in bonuses this year thanks to a $27 billion project by Meta that will also save local residents $2.6 billion on their electricity bills. Their electricity is going down in less than half. That's big stuff, Mr. Governor, right? You didn't have any doubt about it. Here's a governor doing a great job. We have some really great governors in this room. With the Ratepayer Protection Pledge, we're creating a fair deal for everybody. This is how we'll grow our economy, lower the cost of living, protect American consumers, and lead the world in AI and high tech, all at the same time. We want to lead the world. And it is said, if you come in second, you're going to be second overall, because there's never been anything big like this. There's never been any, like in Georgia, there's no other thing you can do to create numbers like you've created, Brian. Both of you, there's no other thing. You can do 100 different deals, 100. It is nothing close to what you've been able to do. And why? They put a big, gorgeous new plant in a certain location. Big deal. It's so incredibly positive. Unfortunately, there are some who would like to lead us down the opposite path. And I call them the radical left communists. They call them socialists, but these people are communists, actually more. I think it's a much more accurate term. Want to shut down all new development, kill our most successful industries, destroy hundreds of thousands of jobs, and surrender the AI race to China. And China, look, you know, I'm not blaming them. I have a lot of respect for them. I have a lot of respect for President Xi, but they represent China. We represent the United States of America. And they lobby against these things, and they spend money on it, and they want communities to reject them as much as possible because they'd like to be leading the race. But we're leading the race, and unless we're very foolish and, frankly, very stupid, we'll continue to lead the race. We have a nice lead. A lot of people didn't expect that was possible. Perhaps even worse, the radical left's plans would not lower your electricity bills, but they would actually increase them very substantially because you wouldn't have all of this money pouring in. You'd have American energy would be far more expensive, and regulating oil, natural gas, and clean, beautiful coal. It would be the end of all of it. It would be the end of all of it. It would be the end of, frankly, it would be the end of great success for our country, because we've never had anything like what's happening right now. I call them the Democrats because their policies are so bad. Look, think of it. No men. We want no men in women's sports. Transgender, they want transgender for everybody. I call it transgender mutilization of your children for everybody. Open borders where the world can pour in, where prisons from all over the world are released into our country. And we've done a hell of a job in getting them out. Murderers, 11,888 murderers let into our country under the previous administration. We've gotten a lot of them out. We're getting the rest of them out fast. But the Democrats in Congress want less energy, not more. And if given the chance, they'd send your prices soaring and inflation skyrocketing, which is exactly what would happen if you had somebody else sitting in the position that I am right now. And just like we did with the Green New scam, where we were scammed. The whole country was, I wasn't scammed. I got it right from the beginning. I got it from the first minute when I heard this crap, you know. They were saying wind was so wonderful, except you couldn't watch your television. They wanted to watch the debate. Donald Trump against Sleepy Joe Biden. Nobody could watch it because the wind wasn't blowing. Remember that? Darling would like to watch the debate tonight. I'm sorry, the wind isn't blowing. No, that's one of the great scams of all time, but, you know. If you dislike another country, let them keep building windmills. They are going down. People are finally figuring it out. But we're not going to let it happen to this country. We're going to use the kind of things that work, and they're working better than anybody ever thought possible. So experts have observed that the amount of energy a society produces is the single greatest indicator of its advancement as a civilization, its success as a country. Think of it when you think the amount of energy produced, Lee. So when you give those fast approvals, that's a positive thing. I want you to feel good. Yet instead of offering a positive version and vision for carrying American civilization to new heights, the radical left only wants to limit our energy consumption and rein in our American dreams. We have the American dream. Until we came along, we had a great first term. We had the greatest economy in the history of our country, and this economy will blow it away. We're doing very well against the Islamic Republic of Iran. We're doing extremely well. They would like to do something, but I say they're not ready yet. They need more of the same. They're not ready yet. They got some evil intentions. We cannot let them have a nuclear weapon. If we did all this that I'm talking about your data centers, isn't that important? When they start blowing away communities one by one. We cannot let them ever even think about having a nuclear weapon, and that's exactly what's happening. They'll never have a nuclear weapon. Under the And by the way, this should have been done by other. They've been saying 47 years now for about 3 years, but this should have been done for 50 years by other American presidents or other countries. Didn't have to be us, but it seems to. If we don't do it, nobody else is. But I will, and nobody else has the capability to do it either. We built in my first term the greatest military anywhere in the world, and we're using it a little more than I thought, but that's all right. We had Venezuela that Chris is doing a fantastic job, and we've paid for the cost of that war many times over. We're taking millions and millions of barrels of oil, and it's going to Houston and Louisiana. You know that. You see those ships lined up. And again, we've paid for that many, many times over, and we have a great relationship with Venezuela. And the people are happy in Venezuela right now. They can't believe what's happened. We have the biggest companies, the biggest oil companies in the world going in and doing business like nobody ever thought possible. And we're taking some, we should, and they're taking some. And, you know, it's very interesting that they're making more money. Chris was showing me some numbers. They're making more money, Venezuela now, than they've ever made before. And we're making a lot, too. And I think we're entitled to that. So it was really something. We took that. It was a one-day war. It took one day. People said, oh, we're going to be tied up there forever. And here, you know, we were in Vietnam for 20 years, lost thousands and hundreds of thousands of lives, but thousands and thousands of lives. We were in Afghanistan for years. We were in all these wars that you heard about for years and years. We were, you know, I called them never-ending wars. Well, we're in for 4 months, and I had a very sad day yesterday. I went to Dover. 4 great American patriots killed. That's 18 in 2 wars, and 1 is too many, but it's 18, whereas in Vietnam we lost 200,000, we lost thousands and thousands in Afghanistan, we lost thousands in every war, the Korean War, thousands, and these wars all lasted for years. And we want to get it over with, and we want to do it right, but we have to do what we came to do, and that's we can't let these people, very violent people, we can't let them have what they want, which is nuclear weapons. It came from all of this success, came from innovation and ambition and drive. In this country, we build the future fearlessly and confidently so that America always will be strong, prosperous, and dominant. And the other thing we're going to add to that, we want to be free, and we're going to continue to be free as long as we're smart. And we can't be hoodwinked. We can't be taken advantage of by people that say you're going to have a free home, you're going to get free rent, everything's going to be free. What they don't say is a year later, everything is going to end up in squalor, destruction, and death, and also death for our country. So we have to stop the threat of the communist rhetoric that you're hearing right now, because these people, they don't act. I'm very happy a poll came out. It said they're highly educated, but doing very poorly. In other words, they're losers. They went to school, they got a good education, now they don't know what they're doing, so what they do is they complain about people like yourselves that have done so well. But we can't let the communist ideology we don't want to even think about it for this country. It would be terrible. So we're joined today by some of the people helping to do all of the things that I just talked about, putting the Ratepayer Protection Pledge into action. And here with us are Secretary of Energy Chris Wright, who's an outstanding person. Doug Burgum told me about Chris. I didn't know Chris. I wanted Doug to head up energy, and Doug said, no, there's one man that's better. Who? Chris Wright. I said, who the hell is that? Turned out to be this guy right over here. And he's turned out to be incredible, really incredible. He's running Venezuela. He's running a lot of, more than anybody has ever run before, I think we can say, Chris, right? He's doing a great job, so we appreciate it. Thank you. A friend of mine, the governor of Louisiana, Jeff Landry, popular guy, really smart, street smart and book smart, which is a rare combination, by the way. We have the governor of Nebraska, Jim Pillen, who's done a fantastic job. He's where's Jim? Is there any someplace? Where are you? Oh, hello, Jim. You're looking good. You don't change much? You don't change much. How's Nebraska doing? Good? Do they still like Trump in Nebraska? I think so, huh? We had a very good night 2 nights ago in a place called Arizona. We're 14 out of 14, and we're doing that kind of numbers in Nebraska. I think we're doing those numbers everywhere, and it's all based on common sense. You know, we're conservative, we're this, we're that, whatever you are. The most important thing is we're people of common sense. We want to have strong borders, we want to have good education, we want to have low taxes, we want to have a great military. We're people of common sense, and if you do that, you'll be very successful at politics. Governor of Idaho, Brad Little, thank you very much, Brad. Governor of Georgia, Brian Kemp, thank you, Brian. Great honor. Entergy CEO, Drew Marsh. Drew, thank you very much, Drew. Thank you, Drew. Great job you're doing. Southern Company CEO, Chris Womack. Chris, hi, there he is again. Chris, I didn't know that was your name. Just saw you. I said, that's a smart guy because you did that big job making people in Georgia rich, right? That's Meta President Dina Powell, who's been my friend. She was with me for 4 years in the White House. And I called up Mark. I said, you hired the right person. You got the right person. So great, Dina. We're proud of you. Columbia County Commission Chairman Doug Duncan. Doug, thank you, Doug. Congratulations. Job well done. And Sheldon Jones of Louisiana's Richland Parish School District. And thank you very much. Good job. You know him, don't you? Huh? Thank you. I heard you're doing fantastically well. And again, Lee Zeldin, who's been so outstanding. So, thank you. So I want to just want to leave you by saying that it's an honor to be here. I'm going over now to talk about various and sundry subjects. One is the Iran war, where, again, we're doing very well, very, very well. I would say better than anybody expected could be done. We've knocked out their Navy, their Air Force, all of their radar, most of their capability in terms of manufacturing. Their drones are down 84%. Their missiles are down 91%. And I had a newspaper say, they're in stronger position today than they were 4 months ago. No, that's not the truth. That's not right. I can't believe they're even allowed to say it. New York Times said, they're in stronger position today. They have no military. They have no Navy. They had 159 ships. Everyone's at the bottom of the sea. They had 212 airplanes. Everyone is gone. They have no radar. They have no anti-aircraft. They have no nothing other than they're mean and they're smart and they still have some capability. But 4 months ago, trust me, they were much, much stronger. Okay, I want to give you the non-fake news. But we're going to do that, and we're going to then have the Dodgers, the World Championship Dodgers are going to be over at the White House. They're going to be waiting. And I'll meet a man who's just about the best pitcher in baseball and just about the best hitter in baseball and just about the best fielder in the outfield in baseball. And needless to say, I guess he had a game where he pitched a almost perfect game, and he had 2 or 3 home runs in that game, and they said it was probably, I said, you know, never seen that. Only Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth was a great pitcher, and he was a great hitter. But even the Babe didn't throw a one-hitter and hit 3 home runs, which would make it, I would imagine, about the greatest game ever played. So we're going to meet him and all of the people of the Dodgers. They won the World Championship, and we see the champions, the Super Bowl champions, and the baseball, basketball, all of them. They like to come over to the White House. We're going to have a little thing in a few minutes. But I want to just thank everybody, and we're really talking about the ratepayer protection plan. To me is very important because you have to convince your community how great these things. You can't fight it. You have to go with it. And you're going to have all that protection, and we're giving you automatic protection. But you're going to make a tremendous amount of money. You're going to reduce taxes, and you're going to have something that if you don't have it, everybody else wants it. So these are the smartest people. Most of you in this room, we have a couple probably on the other side of things. They disagree, but I don't know how they can disagree. Your community and your state's going to become rich, and there's very little disruption. And again, if you don't take all that money, somebody else is going to take it. You might as well do it yourselves. So it's an honor to be with you, and maybe I'll let Chris and Lee and the group and Jeff and Brian, everybody just take over, have a good free-for-all, and figure it out. And if you have any problems, I'll come right back and I'll straighten those problems out, okay? Thank you. Great job. Thank you.
All right, folks, you saw the president there, really talking about quite a bit, really getting on EPA, getting into a little bit of an update on the war with Iran. One thing I thought that was interesting, of course, was that he brought up, he did bring up China, and I thought that was good. And, talk about in terms of the AI race, I think there's a lot going on with China that obviously we need to focus on, something that I've been talking about for years. We know the president's been talking about it. Gave that huge primetime address last week, where, of course, he laid out China interfering in the 2020 election, putting their finger on the scales for Joe Biden, and also getting a bit into cars as well, getting into credit, a number of different things that we've hit recently. Of course, the EPA touches all of this because the EPA was used for years. The EPA was used for years to block all of those things that we wanted as a country. And so, we've only got a few minutes left here. We are still on with Libby Emmons. Libby, you hung. What did you think of the president's remarks?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I'm always interested in his conversation about energy because I think, in a lot of ways, the history of humanity is the history of energy and energy consumption. And there's so much conversation about data centers these days. And I'm interested to see where that goes here in West Virginia, where I live. There are a lot of conversations about data centers, people complaining about them, other people saying that they're creating good jobs. And of course, we're going to have to see what happens there. But people are always reticent about new energy programs.
No, I agree. And actually, when it comes to me personally, I'll ask you where you're at on this, but I think it's time for us to go back to nuclear. I think it's time that, I think nuclear may have been a little untested when it first got started, and people were, were wary of it, skeptical. I live in Pennsylvania, of course. That's where, 3 Mile Island happened, even though, of course, that was an example of the system actually working. And unfortunately, we look at it from this perspective that, this is an unlimited supply of energy from magical rocks that we found that give energy for free. And yet we stopped using the rocks because some people got scared of them. And by the way, having also served in the Navy, every single one of our aircraft carriers, every single one of our submarines has a nuclear propulsion plant on it, has a nuclear reactor, and those things are as safe as can be. So if we have this technology in the Navy, it's good enough for them. I think it's good enough for the country. I think it's really something we need to start embracing more. And I know the president has talked about that. Where are you when it comes to nuclear, Libby?
I'm totally with you on that. I think nuclear energy is the energy of the future. We should be embracing that. And if you look at our history, there was whale oil and then there was coal. Coal was better than whale. Oil was better than coal. And it's time for the next iteration of power that we can use. And this is the kind of power, nuclear energy, that can see us into all kinds of new technologies and new efficiencies. Solar and wind just aren't going to cut it. And additionally, they take up a lot of land resources, right? I mean, a solar energy situation, it's miles of this stuff and it just takes over the land. Wind turbines, once a wind turbine breaks down, you can't recycle it.
Well, think of it like solar and wind. Isn't that kind of like going backwards? Because obviously, like the sun was our first energy source. And then wind was, sails, right, for sailing and windmills. You can still go to Holland and see the windmills, but it's like, guys, it's the big 2-6. I don't know if we, really need to be regressing into the alternative energy, but it's not new energy. That's old stuff. Let's talk about the new stuff. Let's talk about actual progress and moving forward. There's even some the Chinese and the Russians, I just know from from a military perspective, they're looking at nuclear energy that you're able to get at with a chemical breakdown, chemical reaction. So looking at to build mini reactors for different submarines and undersea applications that they have. So really, really important stuff. And I think, again, the innovations that we should be focusing on. Libby Emmons, we follow you.
You can find me on Twitter at Libby Emmons. And of course, check out everything we're doing at thepostmillennial and humanevents.com.
All right, I'm Jack Posobiec. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, you have my permission to lay ashore.